Welcome to Fox Soul's Black Report, your daily source for Black news, views, and opinions. Today is Monday, June 20th, and I'm Mimi Brown.
I'm Romeo.
I'm Demi Lobo, and on today's report, now that Juneteenth is an official federal holiday, more people are celebrating than ever before. And as a state holiday, we'll let you know what businesses will not be open. Meanwhile, the primary election for Kentucky governor isn't until 2023, but the state's Attorney General Daniel Cameron, he's already getting a huge endorsement. But is it the cosign needed to carry him over the finish line? Then, a North Carolina court is tossing out the convictions of a group of civil rights activists 75 years after being convicted of a crime. And one of the men is publishing writings about his time in jail.
Plus, we gear up for the 4th of July holiday with rules for the cookout. And Louisiana and MORE are hitting the same stage, and we're going to tell you where. We have all that and so much more. This is our voice and our truth, so let's get it.
Well, now that Juneteenth is an official federal holiday, more people are celebrating than ever before. The day marks the moment the last enslaved African Americans were informed that the Civil War was finally over and they were free. Black people have been celebrating Juneteenth, though, since 1866. Other communities are now just catching on after Opal Lee and the protests of 2020. Last year, President Biden signed a bill making it a national holiday. He says the day reminds us that this is the way for Americans to move forward.
Happy Juneteenth, everyone. One of the great honors I've had as president was to sign the bill making Juneteenth a national holiday for the first new federal holiday since Martin Luther King Day nearly 4 decades ago. And it matters. It mattered to me and it matters to the country. Juneteenth marks both the long, hard night of slavery and subjugation and the promise of a brighter morning to come. A day of profound weight and power that reminds us of the extraordinary capacity to heal.
Well, thousands of people around the nation celebrating the holiday by going to festivals and parades like the one we saw in Houston over the weekend. And it's because Juneteenth is recognized as both a state and federal holiday. Now, federal government offices like banks, schools, and the U.S. Postal Service will be closed today. President Biden, in his speech, he also talked about some of the initiatives that he implemented for Black families, like providing funding for HBCUs, providing health care for the Black community, and taking important steps to protect voting rights. He didn't say voting rights outright because we're still fighting for those. So he said taking important steps. So we'll see, what steps those continue to be. And then I mentioned Opal Lee in the script. And of course, Opal Lee is considered the grandmother of Juneteenth, where she, at 89 years old, walked from Texas to Washington, D.C. to gather signatures to make Juneteenth a national holiday. As some of you may have today off, it is because, in part, thanks to Opal Lee and her work. She's now 95 years old, and every year she walks 2.5 miles to mark the 2.5 years that the slaves did not know that they were free yet in Galveston. Mm-hmm.
I love this situation because for two things. Once, we get to celebrate and honor a day that we can talk about, that people can learn, that we can teach, because there's some states that don't want us to teach and talk about things like this. And also, you think about, I watched another network the other day, yesterday, and they had a great concert going on with CNN's Juneteenth, the global celebration. And it was good to see the all-Black symphony and things of that and just celebrating, because this is a reason to celebrate. Yes, there's more work to be done, but the Biden administration got this one right for sure, by making sure this happened, this year, and that's something they can carry forward to the midterms as well.
Here in California, Romeo, the Martin Luther King Day Parade is happening today in Los Angeles, and it's kind of commemorative. We didn't get a chance to have it earlier this year, so it's kind of commemorative, celebrating in line with Juneteenth weekend. And I really was happy this weekend. I saw a lot of Juneteenth, but a lot of Father's Day, and so to see everyone celebrate. But I do think that we're still in the earlier steps of Juneteenth, because we haven't gotten to that place where it is a known fact that we are off, we are celebrating this day, we don't have to come into work. It's still in its early stages. So hopefully in the next coming years, we'll feel more like we have it's a real solid holiday. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Corporate America is working to cash in on Juneteenth, but many African Americans are concerned with how they use the day to sell their products. Black artists are working to bring attention to the crass ways capitalism is trying to use the holiday of Juneteenth. One example is Walmart's Juneteenth ice cream, which was ridiculed so much that the company pulled it from its shelves. And so also with the federal holiday now in its second year, Black activists and artists are bringing attention to the capitalism surrounding the culture. They acknowledge that corporations capitalize off every American holiday, but hope that Black creatives seize the narrative around Juneteenth. They add that America has a very long history of taking Black ideas, dances, and music and profiting off of it before creators have a chance to get to it. This is really interesting. So there was a story that I actually sent you guys over the weekend about NASCAR. And so NASCAR wanted to celebrate Pride Month with YASCAR. So everyone thought it was so cute. I'm like, this is so bomb. Yes, YASCAR, creative. But those in the community, the LGBTQ plus community, didn't like it. They didn't like it. And so my rule of thumb, I tell you guys all the time, if someone in this whatever community is offended, you need to change it. Yeah. So for Juneteenth, if we feel like you're profiting off of our holiday, then you need to change it. Mm-hmm. You know, some people might, because like I didn't think the YASCAR was bad. I thought it was cool. So somebody probably thinks that Juneteenth ice cream and a Juneteenth watermelon salad is cool, not understanding that we don't like that. And so if we say that we do not like it as our community, you need to immediately change it.
Yeah. Well, to your point too, Burger King is now apologizing for their two bottoms, two tops bun idea. You know, so there are just things like we don't have to, we can just celebrate the holiday, right? We can learn more facts about the holiday. We can learn more facts about Juneteenth, about Pride Month, whatever it may be. And we don't have to come up with gimmicks. But the thing is, I think in America, capitalism is going to capitalize. Like, that's just what they do. Every holiday, every Christmas, we lose the meaning. Every Easter, we lose the meaning, you know? So that's kind of what we do in America.
Yeah, that's something we're not going to win overall. Like, at the end of the day, people want to go out, they have the day off, they're going to go and spend money, put money into the economy. So it's going to happen each and every holiday. So we can't really control that. Everyone's not going to be happy with what people do for certain holidays. We can't control that as well. But I would say this is important that with this day is acknowledged and people understand the history of it. Like you said, like me, we said, don't lose sight of what this day is really all about because it's important. That's the message that we want to continue to get across moving forward. All right, Georgia's Democratic battle for Secretary of State is also a battle between Black and Asian American candidates. But D. Hawkins Hagler, who is Black, says Georgia Democrats are favoring B. Nguyen, who is a child of Vietnamese immigrants. Because she isn't Black, Hagler says the party wants its slate of candidates to be diverse. Now, gubernatorial candidate Stacey Abrams is backing Nguyen in the race, even though Hagler says the state party has a race problem within its ranks.
The primary for Kentucky governor isn't until 2023, but Daniel Cameron, the state's attorney general, is already getting an endorsement. Donald Trump jumping into the race very early with an endorsement. As attorney general, Cameron's office investigated the shooting of Breonna Taylor in 2020. Now, during a news conference back then, he announced at the grand jury that they said that they had agreed to finding no homicide charges and they were not warranted to the officers. Now, that prompted 3 jurors to come forward and dispute his account, saying they were not given the opportunity to consider homicide charges against the police. No officers were ever charged in the death of Breonna Taylor. Now, Cameron is the first African American in the state to be elected statewide.
And a federal judge is rejecting an extension to its deadline for Louisiana lawmakers to redraw a congressional map that includes a second majority Black district. U.S. District Court Judge Shelley Dick was unpersuaded by lawmakers who asked for more time. The judge said the Republican-led State House leader was being dishonest when he asked for more time after just 1 day of work. The legislator was 6 days to change the map. Judge Dick says that lawmakers met for only 90 minutes after gathering on Wednesday. The Republican-dominated legislator and the governor, a Democrat, who has been fighting over boundaries since February. Now, when lawmakers approved a congressional map with white majorities in 5 of 6 districts, Democrats and the Louisiana Legislative Black Caucus argued that the current map dilutes the political power of Black voters, and at least 2 of the 6 districts should have Black majorities. Nearly 1/3 of Louisiana's population is Black.
A Georgia City councilman is resigning to protest the reopening of a Confederate souvenir store that sells images with racial slurs. Kennesaw Councilman James Eaton says he wants no part of a city that issued a business license to a Confederate store. Eaton says there's a difference between a store that sells merchandise and one that promotes hate. Wildman Civil War surplus reopened last week after the death of its founder. The city manager says officials don't pick and choose or find reasons not to issue license when an applicant meets all of the criteria.
And experts in the reparations debate say California's task force on the issue could be a roadmap for the descendants of U.S. slavery. Now, California's reparation task force recently released a 500-page report about slavery's impact and legacy in California. The task force must now wrestle with the logistics of making a financial program work. Opponents in the state say the reparations argument does not apply to California because slavery never happened in the state. The next step for the task force, though, is to collect public comments and surveys. The panel will then have to put together a program that will be recommended to the state legislature and Governor Gavin Newsom.
One of Malcolm X's daughters says African Americans must stay focused on the fight against inequality in the United States. Dr. Ilyasa Shabazz told the Griot racism and inequality still exist in America. She believes as a collective, people need to stay focused on change and avoid getting too comfortable. Shabazz also says her father and her mother, Dr. Betty Shabazz, influenced her on how she viewed leadership. Shabazz says that when it comes to recognizing which leaders should be supported, people should look for those who are more fearless and have the people's best interests at heart.
George Washington University says it will stop using the nickname colonials by late next year. School officials say the nickname, which was intended to honor the country's first president, has long been criticized as a term that glorifies colonialism. University officials say the name has divided the Washington, D.C. community too long, and it was time to change it. The name was taken in 1926. A committee has been set up to decide what the school's new nickname will be.
And after 2 days of jury deliberations, hey, Demi, jurors in the Bill Cosby trial are starting from scratch today. Friday, the jurors came to an agreement on 8 of 9 questions on whether Cosby had sexually assaulted Judith Huth at the Playboy Mansion back in 1975 when she was 16 years old. All but one asked whether Cosby acted in a way that should require punitive damages.
They were supposed to start deliberating at 9 a.m. this morning, but they sent the judge a note, and the note said that there's a personality conflict. The juror foreperson number 6, she said that the jurors seemed to not be getting along, and some came with some preconceived notions or ideas, and we feel that, that's not what we needed. That's not what we wanted.
All right, the judge promising one juror at the start of the trial she could leave after Friday. Cosby's lawyers objected to the decision, but didn't matter because Santa Monica deputies ordered everyone out of the courtroom anyway. The court had to close at 4:30 p.m. because there's no budget for deputy overtime. So jurors will have to begin deliberations again with an alternate juror in place.
One of the most beloved Black-owned bookstores in Los Angeles is sadly closing. SE1 Books, which is located in South LA's historic Leimert Park neighborhood, is closing its brick-and-mortar store after nearly 33 years of being in the neighborhood. It moved to the area in the early 1980s. The most well-known Black authors always made their way to the store when they visited Los Angeles. From Octavia Butler to Ta-Nehisi Coates, Maya Angelou, Toni Morrison, to former President Barack Obama, the list goes on. The owners said that they were tired and wanted to move on, but they will continue to sell books online to se1bookstore.com.
2 white Florida men are being charged with federal hate crimes for allegedly beating a Black man with an axe handle in a store parking lot. Roy and Robert Lashley were indicted Friday for an attack in November of last year. The victim, who is being identified as DB, was in a parking lot of a Family Dollar store in Citrus County, just outside of Tampa. The victim says he was walking away from the store when someone began yelling racial slurs at him. Cops say Robert Lashley struck the man in the face. The pair have also been charged with assault and battery under state charges. They could face 10 years in prison and $250,000 on federal charge.
A suburban New York man is facing hate crime charges after using a racial slur and threatening a black pastor and his son during a road rage incident. Pastor Rob McLemore says he was accosted by the man after the guy cut him off with his pickup truck last week. The incident was also caught on video. The pastor says the white man got out of his truck and approached his car with a box cutter, threatening to stab him. Now, on the video, the man tells the pastor that he's an off-duty cop, but that is not true. The man also shouted the N-word and tried to rear-end the pastor's car and followed him into a restaurant parking lot. The man was arrested and charged with hate crimes and menacing.
Chicago's police superintendent wants an officer accused of dragging a black woman by her hair and kneeling on her neck during that incident to be fired. It all happened in May of 2020 during the George Floyd protests when Mia Wright was a passenger in a car that drove to a mall parking lot, not realizing it was closed because of the looting that was going on in the city. Chicago cops surrounded the car thinking that they were looters and smashed the vehicle's windows. You're looking at video footage of what's going on that we're talking about right now. Officer David Luskis allegedly pulled Mia Wright from the car by her hair and put his knee on her neck. Wright says that she was left blind in one eye, flying glass caused by officers breaking the window. Superintendent David Brown filed disciplinary charges against the officer this month. Now it's up to the Chicago Police Board to decide what happens to him as a result. Meanwhile, Wright and 3 other relatives who were in the car have filed federal civil rights lawsuits against the cop and Chicago police. They've already been approved for $1.6 million settlement by the state. So just a quick update, because I thought that they all were going to get $1.6 million because it was 4 people in the car. Right. So the way that it's going to break down here is with that $1.67 million, Mia Wright, who is mainly the woman who, experienced the most loss, she's going to get $650,000. The other 4 people who are in the car are going to get $243,000 apiece. So I don't know if, money is, you could say that we could get more money for it. But at the end of the day, wouldn't it just be nice if you didn't have to go through this? But I will say during those times, I was personally staying away from any and everywhere during the George Floyd protests because it was insane. And especially in Chicago, I read so many stories from my friends who have businesses. It was really like a war zone going on in Chicago and in other cities. But I know in Chicago specifically, it was wild. And so not justifying these police officers here, but I know I was trying to stay as far away from anything as possible during those times.
Yeah, this was my first time even seeing that video. And the way they surrounded her car, the way they pulled her out of the car. I mean, what happened to innocent until proven guilty here? Like, to walk up to someone's car like that and immediately use your baton to start hitting the windows and pulling people out of their car. I don't care what you thought they were doing. They had not done anything yet. So that right there is the problem within itself. Like, they could have been, she could have been getting off of work. She could have been picking up her child from daycare. Like, I don't know what's in that shopping center, but immediately walking up to the car and start beating on the window and breaking glass? Come on now.
It's not someone else's driveway. It's a shopping center. And when I look at that video, it takes me back to the Rodney King beating, how it took so many officers, right, to get involved into this situation. And then again, if you're aware of thinking they're out there looting or you're not sure what's going on, wait till they exit the vehicle. Maybe the police can keep their distance and say, please exit the vehicle quietly. But no, they took it into their own hands literally, and we saw what happened. And now they have to cut another check to another black family and family members. Who has to pay that, though? It's the taxpayers. It's the taxpayers. I mean, it's not the officers at some point. You know what I'm saying? We know our officers are not bad, but at some point they have to be responsible all the way through.
Right. The behavior, dragging her by her hair,
it's horrible.
The knee and the neck, that is just a signature move.
Yeah,
we talk about it more and more.
Absolutely. My only, you guys know that I'm always devil's advocate here for a second. My only thing is that I remember vividly people were literally calling friends up, right? And saying, hey, we're going to go in Target. We're going to bust down Target. Hey, come up here, come up here. So I feel like also, too, you see what's going on in the news. And this is not to me. This is just, if this ever happens again, soulmates, if you see something that's going on, stay away from it. A lot of times we like to go into the action, see what's going on, see, how parents say we don't know if fat meat is greasy. Stay away from it, because also too, sometimes we put ourselves in situations to be also you know, I don't know. It sounds
No,
really bad.
I
what I'm
hear
saying,
you.
But you know,
I hear what you're saying,
I stayed
but
as far
still.
away as possible. It's just
I
like you
hear
see
you.
that people are
But
running out of the
you
store
know
with
what?
bags.
Yeah.
Don't
Yes,
go towards it.
but that's different, right? So if they were looting, if there was actual looting, because I didn't see any looting
didn't
in that
see looting
video.
there either.
So if there was actual looting, if people were fighting, absolutely stay away from that. But as a black citizen, I should be able to drive anywhere that I
you're
want.
right.
You should not just assume that I'm a looter
No,
because
you-
there's 4 black people in a car. Like I have rights too. You know what I
The only
mean?
chaos I saw was the police dragging them out
That
of the
is
car.
the
That's
only
all.
chaos taking place in that video.
All right, moving on. 75 years after a group of civil rights activists were convicted of a crime, a North Carolina court is tossing out their convictions. On April 9th, 1947, a group of 8 white men and 8 black men began the first Freedom Ride to challenge laws that mandated segregation on buses. 4 of these Freedom Riders were arrested and charged with disorderly conduct for refusing to move from the front of the bus. They were sentenced to work on a chain gang. Bernard Rustin, who was an architect of the March on Washington, led the group who wanted to end mandated bus segregation in North Carolina. 75 years later, the Orange County District Court is vacating the convictions. Rustin published writing about this time in jail. If he were alive today,